G'day. Yeah, I have the Valkyrie MK3.5 downhill trucks here, and I'm gonna do my best to do a review. Obviously, being trucks, it's a little more difficult to kind of articulate what I'm gonna try and say as far as explaining the trucks. So I'll just do my best to try and objectively describe what the trucks are like, and hopefully you can get out of this something about them. But yeah, I got this set of the MK3.5s in July or August this year, so in the summertime, and I've been wanting to do a review on them for a long time. I've been wanting to review Valkyries for a long time. For those who don't know me, I've been riding the set of RB2s for I guess 4 years at this point, and I always thought these were outdated models, so I didn't want to review them, and I got this set in the summertime, and I wanted to do a review, but I just wanted to make sure I skated them for a while so that I could really, you know, talk about them accurately. So yeah, this has been a long time coming. I love Valkyrie trucks. I've been riding them for a long time, and yeah, stoked to get into what these trucks are all about. So we'll start off with the specs for the MK3.5s. They're using the same geometry base plate, so it's just the hangers that are the updated newer version, and they come in at both 135 to 45 millimeter widths and 150 to 160 millimeter widths. I went with the 150 to 60s this time. They've added rake, so the previous model had 2 millimeters of rake. They now come with 3 millimeters of rake, and you know, they're precision made. They're made with all the good stuff, aluminium, all that kind of cool fancy stuff that no one really knows about, but just they're machined, so they're really strong. They're gonna last you forever. The base plate options are 45, 30, and an adjustable base plate. I went with 45-30. You could also go for 45-45 to have symmetrical. And I already own an adjustable plate, so that's really cool. But yeah, 45-30 seems to be where I'm pretty happy at. Valkyries obviously come with this patented coplanar bushing design, and what that does is that the top of the bottom bushing is in line with the bottom of the top bushing. So with other trucks, you're going to have some kind of a gap where they sit into the hanger, and this can create, like, not really slop, but just kind of an interesting point in the middle. Other truck companies have done different things to sort of counteract that. Ronin have their queen pin, Rogue trucks and others have the insert things in the but yeah, the Valkyrie design is that both bushings are actually in line, and this also has the effect of lowering the ride height of the truck. So these have a very low profile. If you're going to put these trucks, the same wheels on the same deck, compared to a different set of trucks, the decks, your feet, where your feet are, is going to sit lower on Valkyries compared to other trucks. So the Valkyrie downhill trucks are like designed more with just general downhill skating and free riding and that kind of stuff in mind. If you're looking for like a race spec, super fast, high-end, you know, racing style truck, you're going to go for their slaloms, and that current design is the single bushing. That's quite a different truck. This is just more of your traditional downhill truck, and it's good for everything. I've been riding these trucks for everything that I do, from slow, mellow free ride all the way up to like racing and faster downhill skating, and I actually keep them at the same specs. I'm riding them at 150 or 60 depending on the width of my wheels, and I've kept them at the 45-30 degree base plates, and I've really enjoyed that. I don't know how much it matters, but I'm riding glow-in-the-dark 95A Venoms in the rear, and I'm riding 87A purple Venoms up front. Both bushings the same. Just as a mini side note, I guess I have heard people say that you're supposed to have the same Duro bushings, board and roadside, in Valkyries. I've ridden both ways, and I don't think it really matters. That's just a little side note. Okay, let's talk about how they actually feel, how they ride, kind of like, yeah, what they're actually like when you're riding them compared to other trucks, and just, yeah. I'll start off with, obviously, they are tall bushings, and so tall bushings are going to give you more of a leany feel. You're going to have more movement within your trucks. Shorter bushings have less room to compress before they stop, and so a short bushing truck is kind of going to not take as long to get to the end of its turning. Tall bushings are going to have a lot more of that lean. This means you'll have a lot more movement for how tightly you turn. So tall bushings tend to have a slightly less responsive feeling. Responsive as far as like how much you lean compared to how much you turn. But they give you that room for extra lean and extra turn and flow. And so that's just not specifically Valkyrie, but just tall bushings in general are going to be a more leany feeling truck. I find that the coplanar design, where the bushings are stepped like this, gives the effect of a softer feeling truck. And so I think I've heard over the years a lot of people say they find Valkyries really unstable or loose feeling. And I think it might be the coplanar design makes them feel soft. So I've tended to ride a harder bushing than what I maybe would in a similar truck of similar specs. I would put up a Duro, and I found that counteracts that pretty effectively while having the same kind of feeling that you're looking for. I also find that preloading the kingpin helps with that a lot, because these trucks do have that quite soft, fluid kind of feeling in the turn. And yeah, just running slightly harder bushings and preloading the bushings just a little bit, not cranking them because it can be bad for your bushings, but just preloading them a little bit counteracts that sort of really fluid, soft motion and just gets you to have the feeling of how the truck is supposed to be. Or at least how I like it. Jumping up from the 2mm of rake to the 3mm of rake, these RB2s had 2 mils. These are a few models behind what these are, so there's a bit of a bigger jump from me riding these to me riding these. But I really can feel it. From 2mm of rake to 3mm of rake, it doesn't sound like a big jump, but you can feel like you get a bit more responsiveness from the trucks. So kind of like what I was talking about earlier with the tall bushings giving you more movement, but not necessarily as much like actual turn in your trucks. The rake seems to help a little bit with that. It makes the trucks feel a little bit more snappy and divey, while still maintaining that flowy, leany feeling. The rake just seems to let them sort of flick out a little bit more, and yeah, just makes the trucks feel a bit more lively and responsive compared to how they did feel, which is really nice. I think it was a really good improvement. This isn't so much of a difference between the MK3.5 and the MK3 or MK2.5, whichever was previous, but me going from the RB2s to the MK3s, you can see this hanger is a lot more beefy and chunky, and this one's got the cutouts on it. I'm just sitting here holding them, I can feel the weight difference, and you feel that when you're skating too. Like a lighter truck is gonna feel a bit easier to throw around. Like when you go to throw slides, especially stand-up slides, a lighter truck's gonna just sort of flick out from underneath you a bit heavier. I don't know, there's something that I noticed. It's not going to be as noticeable if you're riding the 2mm version compared to the 3mm, because they have the same kind of cutouts in the hanger, but it's just something that I noticed when switching from that truck to this one. I find these to have a really stable center point, just in comparison to trucks that I have previously skated. I know a lot of people will say that there's certain other trucks that have a much stronger center point, but I think considering how surfy and flowy and leany these trucks feel, they have a extremely solid center point. And I think that's greatly due to the coplanar design. I think it's just because it has that exact center point, the trucks want to go back there and happily sit there. A lot of the time people have commented about Valks being unstable. Again, I would credit that due to them not setting them up properly, and the fact that this coplanar design is different to a regular reverse kingpin style. This is a different geometry of a truck, and you have to sort of set up your trucks accordingly. It's not super complicated, but it just requires a little bit of thought to just try your trucks, figure them out, and see what works. Personally, riding these for 4 years at this point, 6 months on this iteration of the design, I've never had issues with stability. In fact, quite the opposite. I've never felt more stable on any truck than these. And yeah, I think when you start getting into the world of precision trucks, of high-end trucks, expensive trucks, stability is going to come down more to the skater. It's not so much to do with gear, because all the precision trucks are designed to be stable. This coplanar design is designed to be stable. The Queenpin and Rodens is designed to help me more stable. The inserts and rogues are designed to help the truck be more stable. It's going to come down more to user than it is to gear, because the gear is precision and designed for stability. So yeah, I find these extremely stable trucks. I've never had issues with stability. And you hop on something like a ZM1, I only tried them briefly and they feel so squirrely and unstable to me, but they're the race truck for Rogue now. And so I think if you're just going to talk about it as a flat level, stable trucks. Most Precisions are, but these are definitely stable trucks. Like I mentioned earlier with the low profile, so that the, I guess the best way to describe it is that the hanger is sitting closer to the bottom of the base plate. The gap between, you know, the axle and the bottom of the base plate is less than other trucks. This makes the trucks also feel a little less lively in characteristic, I guess, as far as like the responsiveness of the truck. So I'm saying like when you go to turn, it moves under your feet, but you don't turn, you know, on a dime. And not in a bad way, just like in a, it's kind of tricky to explain, but it's what gives that surfy feeling. If you ride like say the Rogue Precision, the gold trucks, they have a different thing. You turn on them, they're going to really try and turn around. And that's like a sort of a racy kind of design. They're really going to turn on that dime. These, you're going to get the same amount of lean from your foot, and they're going to take a wider turning circle. And what this does is it contributes to the stability. You know, your trucks are less likely to sort of turn you in the wrong direction quickly. But it also makes them slipperier and slidier. If you think about it, you've got a wider turning circle, it's not going to make as tight of a corner. It's more likely for the wheels to break traction while you're making that corner. And that really leans into their free ride kind of aspect and just all-around skating. Like these are not really designed to be the race truck, they're just designed to be a good solid downhill truck. And this sort of contributes, again, into that sort of surfy, leany, flowy style, where you can really carve and just push out your slides on the outside of your calves, which I really enjoy. I'm much more of a free rider, and I love the feeling of just being able to carve and flow and have that looseness in the tall bushings to really carve around, but like the slidiness to be able to just poke out slides at the end of the carve. Whereas some trucks that can sort of turn on a dime like that, when you go to try and throw the slide out, they want to grip and turn the corner. These are going to be a lot easier to release the slide, which is an interesting thing, I think. And that also is contributed to by the fact that these trucks have a 45-degree base plate for the front. You'll notice, I mean, when I was getting into skating, the standard was 50 degrees everywhere, and you're seeing a lot more now, 45, 44, you know, around that sort of number as a front truck, which is interesting because that's going to give you a little less turn, a little less responsiveness in your front truck, which is where all your turning is based. So yeah, that kind of contributes a little bit more to the stability, flowy, surfy nature of the trucks, whereas something like a Slalom Rogue or a Ronin, you're probably going to get that 50-degree angle at the front and get a bit more responsiveness, tighter turn circle, and grippier. So these are really sort of leaning in to that free rideability of the truck, which personally I really enjoy. I guess just for what it's worth, my personal opinion of these trucks, obviously I've talked really highly about them, but I find they really suit my style. I have kind of a reasonably controlled but flowy style of skating. It's kind of how I would describe my own style. You know, I don't really look kind of like I'm all over the place. I don't really like throw my slides, I kind of like ease into them. I like to carve a lot. I notice like I find myself, I don't really skate straight. I'm kind of always sort of swaying to one side or the other and just flowing down the road. That's really my style. I'm not charging, I'm not trying to bang the apex fastest line. I tend to just enjoy to carve and surf and enjoy my way down the road. And these trucks really lean into that style of skating. That's not to say you can't, you know, charge in a straight line, you can't, you know, take the fastest apex through a corner. There's a lot of guys that ride Valkyries that skate in that way. I just find that these trucks really like accentuate my style and the way that I like to skate, and that would be the best way I would describe them to someone. You know, I often tell people if you come from street skating, you're probably better off on a truck with short bushings like an Aero or something like that, because it's a more snappy kind of style, and those kind of skaters are more likely to throw their slides out quite aggressively. Whereas if you came from a longboarding, surfing, cruising kind of background like I did from cruising around town on my really long drop-through board, that's kind of the style of skating that I've just ended up in, is like a very smooth, flowy, you know, carvy style. I keep saying all those words, but that's really how these trucks feel to me. Yeah, that would be my sort of personal take an input of these trucks. With all that being said, I still think they're like a middle ground between just free riding and like a slalom board. They're in that middle ground because they got, like I got 150 to 60s in that kind of prime width where you want, not too wide for just free riding, but not too narrow that you can't free ride them. And the tall bushing design, it does still fully lean into the racing aspect where you have a lot more movement and you have a lot more room to tuck lean and really get into the corners of roads and things like that. And so I find that they are suitable for going fast and racing. Like I said, I do everything on them, but just the lower profile, the lower degree front, the slidability combined with the stability and the tall bushing and the flowy feeling just makes for a really great all-round truck where I can just feel confident doing anything. And that's kind of why I love riding these trucks. Like I just can do my free ridey stand-up slides. All I have to do is change wheels, go down to 150 mils, and I can race it like the the Outlaw that we're having or whatever, and just feel great either way. And I don't need to switch between setups depending on the discipline of skating that I'm doing. Okay, so I guess the main reason you would want to watch this video is like you want to try and find out if these trucks are for you. Unfortunately, the trickiest thing with trucks and recommending them to people and things like that is just you're really going to have to try trucks and figure out your style and learn which trucks are going to suit your style. Like if you have really been like resonating with the way I've been saying surfy and leany and flowy and like carving and just poking out the slides at the end of the carve and really leaning into your slide initiations and stuff, these really could be a good truck for you. If you came from street skating, you're really aggressive and you like to throw your slides and do like all that kind of crazy stuff, then you might want to start leaning into something else. But the best advice I can give for like any kind of trying trucks is just try before you buy. At an event, at a local session, anytime you can, try riding other people's trucks. Doesn't mean like riding a crazy road or anything, people set up their trucks different, but just standing on them, getting a feel of them, that's going to be your best bet to start off with. But with that being said, I would say people have been skating a while and have an idea of their own style and how they skate. That's when you're kind of ready to start looking into precisions, because these are, the higher end that there is for trucks. They're not cheap. They last forever. It's the kind of thing you kind of want to buy once and be like, yeah, these are the trucks that I ride. And so I would say if you have a cruisy, like flowy, surfy style of skating, but you do skate fast, you take skating seriously, and you want a truck that's going to handle anything you throw at it, this is a truck that you want to look into. These are definitely not for beginners at all. I don't think any precision truck is for a beginner. I don't think as a beginner you can get out of a precision truck what they're designed for. If you're not going over 20 miles an hour, if you can't even slide both ways yet, it's just not necessary. I don't think it would make things harder. It's not going to, be a problem for you. It's just not needed. You can get out of skating what you need to, and the most you'll get out of skating, the same as you would on these as you would on like cast calibers or the new cast Rovos or Paris trucks. You don't need something like this when you're a beginner. So I just wouldn't recommend it for a beginner. I would say just hone your skills, learn your skate style, try other people's setups, and then start thinking about trucks like this. I would say if you are someone that sort of leans more towards freeride and chill downhill skating, you tuck when you like kind of need to or really feel like it, but most of the time you're just enjoying riding, this is probably a good type of truck for that. If you're more of a racy type person, you might want to start leaning towards the slalom versions or slalom trucks in a different, area. If you're looking for a comparison to trucks, I haven't ridden extensively many other truck brands, but the closest feeling truck I have skated to Valkyries is probably Ronin's. I find that their queen pin design gives a similar effect as the coplanar bushing design. It's obviously not the same, and I think this is a more advanced, superior design than the queen pin, but it has a similar feeling. And I know Ronins have been around longer, probably a bit more common, although Valkyries are becoming more popular now. And so if you've tried Ronins, these are going to be a similar feeling truck to Ronins. But yeah, I guess that would be my summary, my review, my personal opinion, and my recommendations for these trucks. Obviously, I find trucks the most difficult thing to review, just because it's like, it's a lot less objective and a lot more subjective. You can kind of describe the best how I feel on them, but that doesn't necessarily mean how everyone feels on them. And so this has been my best attempt at describing the Valkyrie MK3.5 downhill trucks. These are the trucks that I ride for everything. I do love them. I can't recommend them enough. And I will say, if you are thinking of Valkyries and you have any questions at all for any of the models, feel free to hit me up. I have had people in the past ask me questions about them, how to set them up, people who are struggling with that loose feeling of the trucks and just trying to figure out how to tune them for themselves. I'm more than happy to help. Yeah, I love them. They do take a little bit of figuring out, but I think all precision trucks really do, and that's something everyone should be doing with their skate setups, is always trying to just tune it to be best for them. You can't always ride the exact thing that someone else is riding and work the same way. I also wanted just to say shout out to Evan from Valkyrie for helping me out with getting the upgrade from my RB2s to these. It really means a lot to have someone like Evan, help me out with something like that, and he's a great dude doing a great thing with these awesome trucks. If you look at the Valkyrie team, it's pretty stacked. There's some pretty killer skaters out there riding these trucks. So yeah, shout out to Evan. And I do plan on doing a video down the line, just sort of getting in depth more about Valkyries in general. And so I was thinking, if people have questions, you could post them in the comments. I'll take them in. I'll address them in the video in the future. Because I currently have 3 sets. I have the MK3.5, the RB2s, which is the older version. I bought these in 2019. And I also have the previous version of the slalom trucks, the last version before they went to the single bushing design. And so I was thinking it could be cool to do a bit of an in-depth Valkyrie video, getting more into the meat of like what the coplanar bushing design is and getting a bit more nerdy about it. But yeah, this was the MK3.5 downhill trucks from Valkyrie Truck. Super sick. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, dude, awesome.